Picture this. You're flying a crippled B-17 bomber over Nazi Germany. Half your crew is bleeding out, and suddenly a German fighter pulls up next to you. But instead of blowing you out of the sky, he saves your life. This ain't Hollywood, folks. This is the most badass story of honor you've never heard. Welcome to Conflict Archives. December 20th, 1943. The skies over Germany were a meat grinder. American bombers were getting shredded daily, and German fighters were racking up kill counts like it was a sport. But on this day, something went down that would make even the toughest veteran tear up. A German fighter ace looked an easy kill in the eyes and chose humanity over the Iron Cross. What happened next? A friendship that lasted 50 years, a secret kept for decades, and a lesson in honor that puts most of us to shame. Buckle up, because this one's gonna hit different. All right, let's set the stage. It's December 1943, and the 8th Air Force is balls deep in the strategic bombing campaign over Germany. For you folks who don't know, that means flying massive B-17 flying fortresses into the teeth of German air defenses. We're talking flak so thick you could walk on it, and Messerschmitt fighters swarming like angry hornets. On this particular day, a 21-year-old pilot named Charlie Brown from Weston, West Virginia, is flying his second combat mission. Yeah, you heard that right, his second mission. This kid was greener than a St. Patrick's Day parade, and he's about to go through absolute hell. The target was a Focke-Wulf aircraft factory in Bremen, Germany. Now, Bremen wasn't some podunk target. This was deep in enemy territory, heavily defended, and the kind of place where bomber crews went to die. Charlie's plane, nicknamed Ye Old Pub, was part of a massive formation heading straight into the fire. The mission started going sideways from the jump. The formation took heavy flak before they even reached the target. Then came the fighters, Mes 109s and FW-190s, diving out of the sun like bats out of hell. Here's where things get real ugly real fast. Ye Old Pub got absolutely demolished. We're talking nose cone blown to pieces, number 2 engine smoking like a chimney, number 4 engine completely dead, tail gun position shredded, oxygen system destroyed, hydraulics shot to hell, multiple crew members bleeding out. The tail gunner, Hugh Ecke Eckenrode, was hit bad. Blood was everywhere. The navigator and bombardier were wounded. The ball turret gunner had passed out from lack of oxygen. This plane was a flying coffin, and Charlie Brown was fighting just to keep it in the air. They fell out of formation, the absolute worst thing that could happen. A lone bomber was easy pickings for German fighters. It was like being the wounded gazelle separated from the herd, and the lions were circling. Charlie was in bad shape himself. The oxygen system was toast, and at 27,000 feet, you've got maybe 30 seconds of useful consciousness without O2. He had to dive the crippled bomber down to 10,000 feet, just so everyone could breathe. But here's the kicker. Diving made them an even easier target. The plane was barely controllable, shaking like a leaf, leaking fuel and leaving a smoke trail you could see from miles away. Charlie was pretty sure they were dead men flying. Now let me introduce you to the guy on the other side of this story, Franz Stigler. Franz wasn't some rookie. This dude was a decorated Luftwaffe fighter ace with 22 confirmed kills. At 27 years old, he was a stone-cold killer in the skies, flying a Messerschmitt Bf-109. One more kill and he'd earned the Knight Cross, basically the German equivalent of the Medal of Honor. It was the award every fighter pilot dreamed about. Franz had just landed to refuel and rearm at a base near Bremen when he heard about a crippled B-17 limping away from the formation. His commander basically said, "Get up there and finish it off. Easy kill, easy Knight Cross, easy glory." Franz took off, punched through the clouds, and spotted Ye Old Pub struggling along at about 10,000 feet. He came up behind the bomber, finger on the trigger, ready to send it down in flames. But when he got close enough to shoot, something made him pause. The tail guns weren't moving. Franz flew closer. The tail gunner was slumped over, covered in blood. Franz moved up alongside the bomber and looked through the shattered nose. He could see the crew desperately trying to help their wounded buddies. The plane looked like Swiss cheese, holes everywhere, pieces missing, barely holding together. And then Franz saw something that changed everything. Charlie Brown, this young American pilot, fighting with everything he had to keep that wreck in the air. Now, here's what you gotta understand. Franz had every reason to pull that trigger. This was war. These bombers had just tried to blow up his homeland. His friends had died fighting these same Americans. The Knight's Cross was right there. But Franz's old commander, Gustav Rodel, had told him something that stuck. If I ever see or hear of you shooting at a man in a parachute, I will shoot you down myself. Looking at that crippled B-17, Franz saw men in parachutes who just hadn't jumped yet. They were helpless, defenseless. Shooting them would be murder, not combat. So Franz Stigler made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He didn't shoot. Instead of attacking, Franz pulled up alongside a ye old pub. Charlie Brown nearly had a heart attack seeing that German fighter right next to him. He thought this was it, the kill shot was coming. But Franz wasn't positioning to attack, he was trying to get Charlie's attention. Franz started gesturing, pointing down, waving, trying to communicate, "Land in Germany, you'll be prisoners, but you'll live." Charlie thought about it for about half a second and said, hell no, they were going home or dying trying. So Franz did something absolutely insane. He became their escort. For the next 10-15 minutes, Franz Stigler flew formation with a crippled American bomber over Nazi Germany. He flew so close that Charlie could see his face. He positioned himself between ye old pub and any potential threats. When they crossed the German coast and reached the deadly flak batteries, Franz was terrified they'd open fire on both of them. He flew even closer, hoping the gunners would recognize his Bf-109 and hold their fire. It worked. The flak guns stayed silent. As they reached the North Sea and relative safety, Franz knew he had to turn back. He pulled up one last time alongside Charlie Brown's cockpit. The two pilots locked eyes across the void. Franz gave a simple salute, a gesture of respect, pilot to pilot, warrior to warrior. Then he peeled off and disappeared into the German skies. Charlie Brown and his crew made it back to England. Against all odds, ye old pub landed safely. The crew survived. But Charlie was given strict orders. Never talk about the German pilot, ever. The military brass thought the story was either BS or would hurt morale. So Charlie kept his mouth shut. For 40 decades, Charlie carried that memory, the German pilot who could have killed him, but chose mercy instead. He didn't know the pilot's name, didn't know if he survived the war, but he never forgot that salute. In 1986, Charlie decided he had to find this guy. He was getting older, and if there was any chance the German pilot was still alive, Charlie wanted to say thank you. Charlie wrote to a German Fighter Pilots Association. His letter was simple. I'm looking for the German fighter pilot who spared my crew on December 20th, 1943 over Bremen. He included details only someone who was there would know. The location, the time, the condition of the B-17, the escort to the coast. The letter circulated through the fighter pilot community in Germany. Most thought it was a hoax. Some didn't remember. Others had died. Then in January 1990, Charlie got a letter from Canada. It was from Franz Stigler. Franz had emigrated to Canada after the war and became a successful businessman. He'd never told anyone about the B-17 he spared because in post-war Germany, mercy shown to the enemy could get you labeled a traitor. He kept it locked away, just like Charlie. But when he read Charlie's letter, everything came flooding back. The crippled bomber, the wounded crew, the young pilot fighting to survive, the decision he made. Franz wrote back, I was the one. In 1990, Charlie Brown and Franz Stigler met face-to-face for the first time since that day over Germany. Two old men, former enemies, who should have killed each other, but instead chose honor. The reunion was emotional as hell. They hugged, they cried, they talked for hours about that day, filling in the gaps of what each was thinking, feeling, experiencing. Charlie thanked Franz for his life. Franz told Charlie he only did what was right. They both agreed that war makes humans do terrible things, but it can't erase our humanity completely, if we fight to keep it. For the next 18 years, until they both passed away in 2008, Franz in March, Charlie in November, they were inseparable. They attended air shows together, gave speeches together, became best friends. Think about that. A German ace and an American bomber pilot, bonded for life by a single act of mercy in the middle of the most brutal war in human history. Their story was eventually told in the book A Higher Call by Adam Makos. It's an incredible read if you want the full details, and it brought their story to the world. But here's what gets me. Both men said the same thing in their later years. That day over Germany wasn't about politics or patriotism or even courage. It was about two human beings recognizing each other's humanity when the world was screaming at them to hate. So what's the point of this story? Why does it matter? Because in a world that's getting more divided, more hateful, more quick to dehumanize the other side, Franz Stigler and Charlie Brown showed us something powerful. Your enemy is still human. And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do isn't pulling the trigger, it's refusing to. Franz gave up his Knight's Cross, risked a court-martial, and could have been executed for what he did. Charlie could have been labeled a liar or coward for telling the story. But they both chose honor over glory, mercy over vengeance, and humanity over hate. That BF 109 pilot and that B-17 crew should have been statistics, names on a casualty list. Instead, they became brothers, and their story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, we get to choose what kind of person we want to be. If this story hit you like it hit me, do me a favor, share it. Tell someone about Franz and Charlie. In a time when we're all fighting our own battles, sometimes we need to remember that the person on the other side might just surprise us. And hey, if you want more stories like this, real history, real heroes, and the kind of stuff they should teach in schools but don't, hit that subscribe button and stick with Conflict Archives. We're digging up the stories that deserve to be remembered. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon, and remember, honor isn't about winning, it's about how you fight. Franz Stigler and Charlie Brown, two warriors, one moment, a friendship for life. This is Conflict Archives, and this is history worth remembering.